Hello, Glendale friends and neighbors. I'm grateful for this opportunity to address you and to offer my thoughts on the state of our city. There used to be an annual State of the City address. It was given every spring at the city's annual recognition dinner, where volunteers on city committees were recognized for their service. A little over a decade ago, that annual dinner ended, and so did the venue for offering a State of the City address. By the time I became your mayor in 2015, we had already gone at least 5 years without the mayor regularly addressing the city. I'm happy to bring that tradition back and to do so in a format that can be shared with nearly all of our residents. As you know, I regularly use social media as a means of reaching out to the community and communicating with the largest number of residents possible. Recording an address like this and placing it online where it can be viewed is yet one more form of outreach. This last year has been a difficult one around the world. 13 months ago, much of our economy shut down so that we could try to stop the spread of a pandemic virus. City government went online and virtual. Thousands of our residents began working from home. Many more lost their jobs, some temporarily, and some are still out of work. Our schools closed and our children were suddenly attending class from the kitchen table. Through it all, we have watched neighbors look out for one another, help each other with childcare, and find creative ways to build community. We embraced our local eateries and helped keep them afloat. Curbside and takeout became our way of eating out and supporting our local shops. 2 months into the pandemic, we watched George Floyd's murder at the hands of a Minneapolis police officer. Despite the pandemic, we witnessed daily marches in the Milwaukee area that had been going on for over 300 days now without missing a day. Many times those marches have come through Glendale. Our chief and our police officers are to be commended for the way they have handled this last year. Each time the protest march came through Glendale, our officers blocked traffic and allowed the marchers to move through the community. They had friendly conversations with protesters and developed a rapport with them. We have heard Black leaders in the nearby community say a number of times over the past year that Glendale is a model for how they would like police departments to work with communities of color. Chief Ferguson has been on the job for just over 2 years. In that time, he has implemented significant reforms in our department. He started making changes to our police department policy long before George Floyd's murder. He saw that community policing was in the process of a national transformation, and he wanted to be on the forefront of positive change. So a huge thank you goes out to our Glendale Ph.D. and to our Black and brown residents for dialoguing and trying to understand and support one another. Since I have been mayor for 6 years and have never given an address like this first address might be a little longer than it will be in coming years. I'm going to focus on 3 things. First, I'm going to discuss some of the major accomplishments over the last 6 years. Second, I will spend some time discussing current Glendale finances and what they mean for our city's future. And lastly, I'm going to mention some upcoming things so that our residents are aware of future construction projects that impact our city. When I ran for mayor in 2015, I made a commitment to seek out significant new investment in our city, hold the line on taxes, and invest in things that would build community. Former Mayor Jerry Tepper told me that the city was in the midst of a significant transformation. He saw many new families moving in every year and the demographics of our city changing to be younger and more racially and ethnically diverse. He also said that all of our senior city staff were retirement age and that I would most likely, in my first few years, oversee the hiring of most of our city's senior leadership. He was correct. Just over a year after I took office, our city administrator retired. After an extensive national search, the Common Council unanimously recommended the hiring of Rachel Safstrom to be our city administrator. Rachel has been implementing policy and overseeing city staff for 4.5 years at this point. Our city staff has been transformed by a different style of leadership. Mr. Maslowski was a very dynamic city administrator, and he helped to make Glendale what it is today. Our new city administrator, Ms. Safstrom, is a next-generation leader who is helping us transform and evolve. In addition to a city administrator, we have hired a city treasurer, a city clerk, a deputy treasurer, deputy clerk, executive assistant, director of public works, and a chief of police. In addition to all of that hiring, half of the Common Council seats turned over in my first 2 years. We have a Common Council that is very representative of our city. We have a variety of different political and ideological viewpoints. The council is more racially and gender diverse than it has been at any time in our city's history. Members of the Common Council range in age from their late 30s to their 70s. We don't always agree, but we respectfully talk through issues, try to reach consensus whenever possible, but also respect the occasional dissenting vote. Since 2015, we have approved at the Planning Commission and the Community Development Authority over $150 million in new projects in the city of Glendale. You've seen many new buildings go up, and I have certainly heard concerns from residents about the nature of some of those businesses. Some of you have questioned why we've approved yet another new car dealership, or another nursing home, or more banks. Some residents are tired of those kind of businesses, and I understand. They want us to look at new things. They want our city to have a different vision. The major projects we have approved historically have been businesses and institutions that do not require significant use of city services, but they produce additional tax revenue for the city, and they do not create a nuisance for their neighbors. For example, let's talk about a car dealership. An $8 million car dealership produces the same amount of tax revenue as 40 $200,000 homes. It does not ask the city for help with public works and rarely needs police assistance, and it doesn't cause significant traffic pattern disruptions. However, based on the feedback I received from people as we approved some of those projects in my first few years as mayor, I asked the Common Council to fund a vision study. Outreach was done to hundreds of residents to find out how Glendale residents envisioned their city looking in the future. Based on the findings of that vision study, we then commissioned a 20-year master plan. We took the 30,000-foot view that visioning encompassed, and we developed a master plan that went block by block throughout the city to determine land use and zoning, and to identify areas where we could focus future development. The end result of the visioning study and the master plan is a roadmap for how to create gathering places within the community that foster community cohesion and also continue to improve our property tax base. All of this new development means that the city has been able to hold the line on property taxes, which is a subject I will get to in just a moment. However, before I get to the city's financial footing, I want to address one other major project, and that is the massive effort we undertook to rescue Bayshore. In the early 2000s, Glendale's leaders bonded over $100 million to assist the builder in the redevelopment of Bayshore. In 2017, we found ourselves looking at this large shopping center, the largest property taxpayer in the city, that was on the verge of foreclosure and bankruptcy. The city still held about $70 million in outstanding debt. If Bayshore had gone bankrupt, I don't know how our city would have avoided bankruptcy as well. Within 24 hours of learning about the potential foreclosure, the city administrator, city attorney, and I were part of a worldwide conference call of more than a dozen people affiliated with the bank that held the note on Bayshore, as well as folks in their investment division. We had people on that call from London to Los Angeles and many points in between. In the course of about 45 minutes, we convinced them to not foreclose on the property, but to instead find a creative means of reinvesting in Bayshore and making it a profitable holding in their portfolio. They heard us, and they agreed to work with the city to turn Bayshore around. Over the next 2 years, we had many meetings with the lien holder and with the management company that was hired by the bank to take over and run them all. In the course of those conversations, we helped them understand that the city had taken on quite a bit of debt, and we could no longer carry that risk for an investment. We would be open to approving large-scale redevelopment of the north and east side of Bayshore, but we needed the city's debt to be paid off in advance. Surprisingly, the owners of Bayshore agreed to satisfy all of our city debt that was remaining on the 2005 and 2006 redevelopment. And in exchange, they asked us to extend the development agreement to the maximum amount permitted by state law and provide future tax rebates as an incentive to complete the Bayshore redevelopment. They said that they would invest at least $100 million in the project over the next couple of years and complete the development of all of the Bayshore land on the north end and the east side. The owners pay taxes on the 2019 value of Bayshore. However, they will receive a portion of their future taxes back based upon their new investment and the increased value of the town center. It's a merit-based approach and one that I endorse and support. If they don't invest and build, they will not receive any municipal assistance. But in the meantime, the city has had its debt paid off and we receive tax revenue based on Bayshore's 2019 value. All of this new development illustrates a city that cares about its business community and that works with developers to bring in large projects that provide significant new tax revenue. In addition to working with developers, we've also built a strong business association and tourism bureau. Welcome to Glendale and the Glendale Area Business Association promote city businesses and restaurants, help plan and execute city events that bring people to Glendale so they spend their money here, and lastly, help market our hotels to keep them full and profitable. In addition to caring about our business community, we've also worked together as a council to promote green infrastructure and to do our part of the city government to fight climate change. In June 2017, we were one of the first cities in the state to adopt the goals and objectives of the Paris Agreement. We did so with the urging and support of Johnson Controls, which is headquartered here in Glendale, just 2 blocks from City Hall. As a corporation, they had endorsed the Paris Agreement, and they wanted the city where they were headquartered to join them. We set a goal in the resolution that we adopted in 2017 that we would become a net zero city government by January 1st of 2023. As a result of those energy goals, we chose to demolish our old City Hall in late 2018 and to replace that aging and poorly maintained infrastructure with a new building that significantly cuts our energy use and also adopts 21st century stormwater management with green infrastructure all around the City Hall campus. You see bioswales and rain gardens, permeable pavers, and other kinds of green infrastructure all around City Hall. Last summer, we partnered with MMSD on a rain barrel and rain garden program. Hundreds of our city residents took part in the project, where they received rain barrels for their homes, and they learned how to reduce flooding in their yards by planting indigenous plants that help soak up the rainwater where it falls. Our next step is to pursue solar on the roof of City Hall and hopefully the Public Works building as well, so that we can generate enough electricity to completely power our city government from solar energy. The second area I said I was going to address is the city's financial situation. In 2015, Glendale was sitting on over $100 million invested in infrastructure projects in the Bayshore Tax District, the Silver Spring Redevelopment District, and the Tech District on Port Washington Road, south of Hampton Avenue, where you find the Orthopedic Hospital, Ascension Healthcare, and other large and medical developments. The payoff of the Bayshore debt and the closure of the Silver Spring Tax District helped us reduce that $100 million in debt down to just over $15 million currently in city investment debt. We went from over $100 million to just over $15 million currently in the space of 6 years. The only development district that still has outstanding bonds is the Tech District in the southeastern part of the city. What this kind of fiscally responsible budgeting means for us is that the tax rate we pay per $1,000 of value of our homes is lower now than it was when I took office 6 years ago. In 2015, the mill rate was $7.66 per thousand. In 2020, it's now $7.26 per thousand. I'm grateful to have a council and a city administrator that work to provide strong city services, but to do so in a way that holds the line on taxes and is responsible with taxpayer dollars. In addition to keeping our mill rate low, we have also built up a fund balance of approximately 30% of our annual budget. If there's a major economic downturn, we are well equipped as a city to weather that with a formidable rainy day fund. Glendale has a low debt, decent reserves, and an enviable credit score with the big Wall Street agencies. Finally, I want to address some current city projects and some future projects to be watching out for. Bayshore is our largest property. I've talked about it a number of times in this address. Many of you have been to the new Total Wine, which is open at Bayshore. The town square has been refurbished and is now called The Yard, and it is envisioned to be the city's backyard. Bayshore will host concerts, festivals, and even the broadcast of sporting events on the Jumbotron in the Bayshore Yard. Target is under construction and is expected to be open by late summer or early fall. We recently approved over 300 residential units to be built in 4 buildings along the west side of Lydell Avenue on the northern end of the property where the Sears store once stood. We approved a Culver's that will also be built along the northern part of the property on part of what was once the Sears store. Bayshore's owners are planning to bring us more plans for additional buildings on the north and northwest parts of the property to complete the Bayshore development. As you head to Maslowski Park this summer, you will see that Nicolay has completed a softball field and a large grass baseball practice field. MSOE's Raider Stadium has been hosting collegiate, high school, and club baseball games, including an ESPN tournament last summer. Music in the Glen will be back, and the Sprecher Beer Garden will be open this summer. Later this year, the state will begin a 3-year project to widen I-43 from Glendale all the way up to Grafton. They will rebuild and widen Port Washington Road from Bender to Daphne Road, making it 2 lanes in either direction, as it is just south of Bender and as it is up by the library as you head north. And they will also reconstruct Jean Nicolet Road from Bender to the high school. MMSD has taken over the proposed fish passage at the Clutch Falls. They are working with property owners on the east side, as many of you recommended that they look to do, to facilitate a fish passage that does not obstruct our access to the falls like previous plans for the fish passage would have done. We as a city will also be working on the reconstruction of a number of our major roadways and intersections so that we can bring down traffic speeds by including traffic calming and road engineering features that make higher speeds difficult. And lastly, Glendale is pursuing the formation of its own library. The North Shore Library, which is housed in the basement of an office building, does not reflect current National Library standards, nor is it equipped for the way that libraries of the 21st century are evolving. After years of attempting to negotiate with our partners, we reached a point last year where city leaders felt it was time for Glendale to move forward and create its own modern library that meets the needs of the Glendale community. There's a survey on the city's website that we're asking you to fill out. Hundreds of you have already done so. The turnout has been tremendous so far. But if you've not done so, please visit the Glendale City website and take the library survey before April 30th. We have a wonderful committee of current and former librarians, people who've worked closely with libraries in the past, and several folks with extensive nonprofit and fundraising experience. This group of city residents is our Library Advisory Task Force, and they are working diligently to present a plan to the Common Council later this year for what the future Glendale Library should look like. As I conclude these remarks, I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve as your mayor and to work with this Common Council. I enjoy the diversity of opinion and the experience that each person brings to city government. I also want to express my gratitude for our city administrator and city staff. The mayor and council set the policy, but it's the city staff that do the daily work of implementing that policy. Our city motto is Rich Past, Bright Future. I am grateful for our city's rich past and for all the wonderful things that we see in our city, and I look forward to helping shape Glendale's bright future. Thank you.